Are you thinking about retirement? If you are not, you should. Every adult over 18 should be planning for their retirement. And even if you are much older, it is still better late than never. But why are Canadian immigrants, especially Africans, so skeptical about retiring in Canada? Why do they, after working so many years in Canada, want to go back home to retire? Let's look into these questions in today's video. And make sure you watch this video to the end for some very interesting personal opinions about this topic.
Honestly, we as Nigerians and abroad, we think about retirement late, including me.
Hello everyone, my name is Kola. I have lived in Canada for over 25 years. Welcome back to this side of life. And if you're new here, welcome and thank you all for joining me today. So diving into today's video, having lived in Canada for so many years, I have been thinking about my retirement and thinking about, am I going to retire here or am I going to go back home to Nigeria? And I am leaning one way more than the other. But I hear a lot from my fellow African immigrants about all the reasons why they are skeptical, they are doubtful, they don't really want to stay in Canada after they retire when they are old. There's a lot of complaining about growing old in Canada and why they don't want to retire here, they want to go back home. So I wanted to look at some of those reasons today why African immigrants seem to want to leave Canada after living here for so long and working here and get into retirement age. One thing about retirement in Canada is that if you do retire here in Canada, you are qualified for Canada Pension Plan and also old age security. My mom talked about that in the video I did with her. I'll link that here or here. And also any other investments that you have made over your working years, which is why you need to start planning for retirement as early as possible. People start working before they are 18. If you start putting aside money as soon as you start working, you can accumulate a lot and reach $1 million of savings before you actually reach the age of retirement. So the earlier you start thinking about retirement and saving for retirement, the better for you. Getting back to our topic today, one of the main reasons why African immigrants want to leave and go back home to retire is because of the weather. The weather is so cold, like almost half of the year, and in Africa, the weather is warm almost throughout, at least in Nigeria, where I come from. Throughout the year, the weather is warm. The worst you can get is rainy season when it rains a lot. But generally, the weather is warm and comfortable. And so that's one reason why people want to go back home to retire. Another reason is that people believe, African immigrants believe that in Canada, seniors, which is what we call older people, are lonely and isolated. They do not have a community, like the individualistic nature of the society here means that seniors are left alone in their old age without anybody to talk to. They are living alone and they are lonely and they are isolated, and it is not a good life. It is not a pleasant life to live. They believe that back in Africa, it is all about community. You have people around you all the time. You can always go to the neighbors. You can always find things to do, like parties every weekend and things like that. And it would be better to retire in that kind of community than in the society that we have here in Canada. That's another reason why people want to go back home to retire. Also, one fear that African immigrants have is that the Canadian culture is one where senior citizens are placed in a retirement home and kind of forgotten there. They are neglected there by their children. And that will lead to depression, and they have that fear that that is going to happen to them if they decide to stay in Canada and retire in Canada. And for some reason, they think that that is not going to be good for you in retirement to be living in a senior's home. They don't want to do that. They want to go back home because at home, they expect to be staying in their own home and to have family members who will be taking care of them, or maybe their children can get them housekeepers, people who will cook for them, garden, and do all these things for them in the house, because labor is very cheap in Nigeria compared to Canada. So keep in mind that if I go to Nigeria, I will still be able to get my CPP if I live in Nigeria and I worked in Canada, but the old age security requires you to stay in Canada for at least 6 months of the year to be able to get that money. So Let's say if I go and retire in Nigeria, then I wouldn't get my old age security, but I will be left with my Canada pension plan as well as any investments that I have. That would be investments in Canadian dollars, okay? And if you're getting any value from this video, this is the time for you to hit that like button. Give us a thumbs up. It really goes a long way to grow the channel and get the message out to more people. Thank you very much. And then finally, another reason why African immigrants, and I think even other immigrants, want to go back to their home country when they retire is because it is expensive to retire here in Canada. If you haven't paid off your mortgage, you have to think about your mortgage, you have to think about all the living costs and food and transportation and all these things, and we all know what is happening right now with the high cost of living. So yeah, it seems to be very expensive to stay in Canada as a retiree when compared with going back home. I mean, for example, for Nigeria, you will be spending in Naira, and if you get your CPP, even if you don't have the OAS, but you have some money saved up, then if you convert that Canadian dollars to Naira, then it starts to make sense for you to go back home to Nigeria to retire, because your money then goes a much, much longer way than it does in Canada. But of course, that all depends on how much you have saved up already anyway, how much of CPP you have and how much you have saved up for your retirement. So yeah, so those are some of the reasons why people say, oh, we don't want to retire in Canada, we want to go back home. But I don't think I can say it as well as Dr. So in this clip, let's take a listen.
Personally, these homes are beautiful, lovely, fantastic. It's like living in Nikonuga all your life. But most of them are expensive. And I've made up my mind. I've called my family. I've called my daughter, my wife. I said, guys, I don't want to be here. I can't afford it. It's too expensive. I can't afford it at that old age. Even if I do, I'd rather use a fraction of that money and stay in Lekki or Port Harcourt or Independence Layout. I mean, I have houses there. Why not?
Okay, so we've heard from Dr. Zell and his thoughts about going back home to retire. And we can tell which way he is leaning for sure. But I have a friend, a Caucasian Canadian friend, who I spoke with about retirement, and I mean, she's been retired for over 10 years, and she gave me some of her opinions about retirement as well. I want you to hear her in her own words. Everyone, this is Pat. I work with her at the guest center in the church, and I just wanted to get her opinion on some things. So, hi, Pat.
Hi.
So, people seem to think that in Canada, that seniors are lonely, isolated, they are neglected, they are bored, they are depressed. But I hear you all the time, and you talk about your day, your week, and you seem to be having so much fun. So can you tell us, like, how old are you and when did you retire?
I'm 73 in August, and I retired at 60. And I don't ever regret retiring early. I never look back. I love my job as a secretary at a big high school, but I don't regret retiring. I've got lots of friends that are worried about retirement, that they won't know what they'll do with themselves. But that did not happen for me. I volunteered lots. I started volunteering at my grandson's school. There's always kids, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, that are struggling with reading or math that need some extra help. Teacher can always use help. I joined exercise class for over 50, and swim exercise or land exercise, both. I started playing cards in a group of people. I play cards 2 nights a week. But my church was big because I knew that I liked outreach programs. I would do more if I had the time, but I'm also busy with 3 grandsons too, so in their sports. So there's lots to do at a church, get into a church, but also where you live too. If you live in a community that has like a lot of my friends, people over 50, I'm in an apartment building, but made friends there that I have over for tea. And just like we're talking about at church right now, I have people over for meals lots too. I always did. And I lived in Regina for 25 years. Every Saturday night I would have a lot of single friends or other friends over to play cards and for supper. It's up to you. You can stay in your home and never meet anybody, and that's okay. No one's going to reach out. But if you want to get involved, there's lots of places to get involved.
And what about like the cost of living? Like, how you know, they say that it's very expensive when you are old. You cannot afford to live a good life. But I see you travel a lot, like you go to places.
I did a lot the first few years.
Yeah.
My first few years of retirement, I traveled constantly. Now, it is way more expensive to do that. I do try to get away for the month of March. I have a friend who has a home in Arizona, and I drive her back. I fly down and drive her back. Yeah, you have to budget for that holiday. But when I first retired, I really traveled a lot those first few years, which I'm glad, because it doesn't get as easy when you get older, traveling through airports and that. Yeah.
So, but your life is not boring.
Not boring for a second. Not boring for a minute.
Would you consider going into a home?
Oh, in a minute. If I can't look after if I can't be in my place anymore, I have one son and I won't burden him with that. I would go into a senior's place with other people my age that like to play cards and like to watch old movies.
And it's not boring
and go
there.
for walks. And some of the seniors' place I visited friends, they play bowling on the Wii and stuff like that. And so I would be involved in that, because that's the kind of person I am.
Thank you so much, Pat.
You're welcome.
Let me show us together. There we are.
You're the best. You're the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Having heard from Dr. Sel and Pat, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Would you retire in Canada? Would you go back to your home country? Go back to Nigeria? I really need you to weigh in on this topic, because I want to know what people think, especially if you are an immigrant and if you are from Africa. Let us know what you think about staying here in your retirement versus going back home to retire. I do have my own thoughts about this topic, and I will be sharing that in another video. So make sure you stay tuned to this channel for that. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me again. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whenever I upload new videos. Also stay tuned to this channel for much more interesting content coming your way. Until I come your way again, until the next video, you go out and make it the best days of your life. Bye!